Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Lovely to be here, as always, with you to draw some inspiration from our weekly Parsha as we sit into Shabbat together. So this week's Parsha is Parshat Bo, which means come in. God says to Moses, Bo el paro, ki ani hikvadati et libo ve'et lev avadav, leman shiti ototi ele bekirbo. God says to Moses, come to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the heart of his servants, in order that I can show my signs and my miracles among them. And so it's really interesting. Why does it say come to Pharaoh rather than go to Pharaoh? Come rather than go implies a beckoning in, right? As if in some mysterious way, the divine is actually present with Pharaoh. It's like the divine is there within Pharaoh saying, come in. And our text teaches that God hardens Pharaoh's heart in response to Moshe's requests to set the Israelites free. But perhaps here in this implication of come, bo, perhaps God is in some way within that hardened heart of Pharaoh. And it must be encountered, known for liberation to be possible. Come, bo, come in to encounter the truth. And I know for myself, so many of us often feel that obstacles and hardened places within our own hearts are in the way of our liberation, right? But it may be possible. And I think the invitation here is to consider the possibility that what we perceive as in the way, perhaps is the way. When we are willing to lean in to these hard places, we might then have the possibility of coming to know and understand them more deeply. We come in and we become curious about the fullness of the truth of these places of resistance within ourselves. Experience something challenging and difficult. If we can bring the lens of our mindful awareness to that experience, we can look more deeply. We can even get more specific. What is this experience? What are the physical sensations that accompany it beyond the stories that my mind makes up about it? What emotions can I feel when I encounter this? What images or thoughts are associated? Can we be with the hurting or hardened places within ourselves with curiosity, with care, with the willingness to encounter them, to know their truth? And what happens then when we can do so, when we can meet these hardened or hurt places within ourselves or others or the world with tender care? What happens if instead of exiling those parts of ourselves that are hurting, we can hold them with loving awareness? We can welcome them in, just the way that we would do with a child who is in pain. Just as God says in our Parsha, come, bo, come to Pharaoh, come to this hardened heart. Can we extend that same welcoming, that beckoning in to ourselves and to our own places of pain? Can we say, bo, come in? Can we say that to our own hearts? You are welcome here. You too have a place here. And it's through this gateway of welcoming in whatever is arising in our experience, whether it's painful or challenging or beautiful and pleasant, that freedom is possible. When we give up our impulse to push away and resist, or to grasp onto and hold our experience, we can discover what the beautiful Buddhist meditation teacher Jack Kornfield calls the unshakable freedom of heart that is available to us in every moment. Today is International Holocaust Day of Remembrance. And so I want to just share this quote It's such a widely known quote by the Holocaust survivor and psychologist and author Viktor Frankl, who wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom." So in some way, this practice of being with what arises rather than immediately pushing it away or resisting or grasping on is about recovering our fundamental freedom of choice, our freedom to choose our response. And we can find through this practice that in every moment, no matter what is happening, pleasant or unpleasant, we can be free to choose love, to choose a loving response. And in this parsha too, we see that freedom is not about doing whatever we want, right? Freedom is a question of who or what we are in service to. Moshe does not say to Paro, "Let my people go so they can be free." He says, "Let my people go so they can serve God." It's here in this parsha, "Lach ami ve'ya'av dani." Let my people go so they may worship me. So freedom is a matter of who or what we are in service. Freedom is the movement from serving that which is constricted and false to serving love, to serving that which is light, to serving the divine. And so with this, we can settle into our practice for today. So I invite you to settle in to a posture that will be supportive of your mindful presence, your mindful awareness. So just relaxing into the body, perhaps noticing if there are any places in the body right now of constriction, of tension. Can you invite yourself to soften, to release, to relax? You can close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. Feeling the feet on the floor, your hands in your lap. Allowing the body to relax and settle in the present moment. Also feeling that sense of awakeness, aliveness in the body. We're not here just to zone out, but really to wake up to our lives, to wake up to the truth of this moment. Gently inviting ourselves to release the endless stories of the mind, the endless evaluations and judgments, and arrive again and again, to the simplicity of this moment, being with what is here as it arises, moment by moment. And whatever is here, whatever is arising in body and heart or mind, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant or neither, can we welcome it? Can we allow our experience to be just as it is, without needing to change or fix or control anything? And we hold our experience with care. Whatever thoughts or feelings are here. Can we hold it in loving awareness? Can we welcome it in? Can we bring a sense of curiosity or wonder or respect, as if it too is divine? Every aspect of this experience. Can we welcome it in? Bo, come. You are welcome here. Simply meeting whatever arises with love, with compassion, moment by moment. And whatever thoughts or feelings or sensations are arising, in that moment of recognition, can we also notice our freedom to choose a response? We notice that choice point, the choice to respond with love. The choice to return to presence. Noticing whatever's happening, wandering mind, or a sensation, feeling, and welcoming it. Bo, come. This too is divine. This too is worthy of love. For the last few minutes of our sit, I want to offer a question for contemplative inquiry. If freedom is real, if freedom is true, what is it that you're free to do? Who is it that you are free to be? You can take 5 more deep breaths. And gently open your eyes if they've been closed. And perhaps take a moment to take in the space around you. Just notice where you are. Notice what is present, body, heart, mind, soul. Thank you so much for your practice and your presence today. May our practice support us each in welcoming in and responding with love towards that which needs love, and welcoming in our own hearts and in the hearts of one another and the heart of our world. And may we have a beautiful Shabbat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. This beautiful practice to lead us into Shabbat. And we seal the practice as we do each day by offering those of you who are in mourning or observing a yard site, or if it's your custom to participate in Kaddish, to do so. And if you're not reciting Kaddish, just to stay present, stay with that practice that Rebecca led us through, and be able to offer some compassionate support for those who are reciting Kaddish and creating a minyan of comfort for them. So if you are reciting Kaddish and would like to share the name or names of those you're remembering or honoring today, you can put that in the chat box now or after we recite Kaddish. And thanks to Jet for sharing the words of the Kaddish on the screen. And if you're reciting them, I invite you to join me by rising in body or in spirit, and you can unmute to recite the words together. Yikadal, Yalmad, Rak, Hayechon, Yal, Amalak, Ishbe, Rabba, Barak, Lam, Dar, Yitalmad, Yirkata, Amen. Shalom b'rama, Shalom And friends, thank you so much for joining us today to sit into Shabbat together. Always such a joy to be able to do that together and to be led by Rebecca into Shabbat. So thank you so much for being here. We want to thank Jet Bachman, who's holding our space today so beautifully, and just make a note that, of course, we'll be back next week. I'll be missing all of you. I'll be away on retreat next week. So we have Rebecca will be hosting actually on Monday and Tuesday. Our teachers on Monday will be Zach Newman of Macomb in the UK. On Tuesday, Rabbi Sarah Brandis will be joining us from Israel. Wednesday, Rabbi Brian Yosef Schachter Brooks. On Thursday, our dear friend, Rabbi Jordan Ben Appel, who actually originated this set, will be leading us on Thursday, and Rebecca will be back next Friday to lead us in practice, and the host will be our colleague Rabbi Miriam Margles of the IJS faculty. So beautiful week of teaching and practice next week, and I'll be sorry to miss that live, but everyone will be in very, very good hands, of course. So as always, you're invited to stay on for conversation with our teacher today, or just to share reflections on practice, or if you'd like, just to use this time and space and this container to continue to sit together, to be with this community in practice. You're very welcome to do that as well. If you do have a question for Rebecca, it's helpful if you preface it in the chat by writing "question" in all caps, and we'll keep an eye on that. Okay, so Rebecca, there was so much. It was such a rich teaching. Thank you. And I felt like it was a very rich teaching and a very simple, clear practice for us today. And I guess I'd like to retrace our steps a little bit, if that's okay. Just to kind of put those pieces together. This whole story in the Torah about the hardening of Pharaoh's heart, I think perennially for a lot of people is like so problematic, right? A lot of people like, what kind of God, it's a setup here, basically Pharaoh's being entrapped, like he's being punished and the Egyptians are being punished. All these innocent people are being punished, because God has taken away Pharaoh's free will, basically, is what it looks like anyway. But just to retrace our steps, like this week's Parsha has the last 3 plagues. Last week's Parsha had the first 7 plagues. And for the first 5 plagues, actually the Torah describes Pharaoh's as hardening his own heart. And it's then for the last 5 plagues that God is described as God hardening or stiffening his heart in some way. So that question, that quote from Viktor Frankl about the space where we have the freedom, there's something here, it seems to me, about like where for Pharaoh, meaning the Pharaoh within us, our Pharaoh, that space, if we keep repeatedly using our freedom to make choices to harden our heart, then that space becomes extremely limited, and our ability to expand it or make a choice um, evaporates, or almost to the point of not really having free will, right? In the case, for example, of addiction, where people become addicted to patterns of thought and behavior where they've just basically have lost control. And we all, I think, I don't want to generalize too much about that, but that's a process I think we can all relate to. So you were proposing, and I just want to lift it up, is this idea of, this bow come. And what is the nature of coming? Like you could come in confrontation, like come for battle, or you can come with what you were prescribing, which this practice prescribes. Just come with kind, gentle, loving awareness to that which is getting in the way. That even to the parts of ourselves where we're noticing the hardening of heart in action, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to, I guess, I like to kind of recap in my own words and let you correct that or amend it or add to it if you'd like. What do you think?
There's so much there. There's
Well,
so
you
much.
started it.
Dora started it. There's so much in this parsha. Yeah.
Well, maybe let's just focus on the hardening part. Okay. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. The hardening. Yeah. I also find it really interesting that in the first part of the plagues, Pharaoh hardens his own heart. And then what does it mean then that God is hardening Pharaoh's heart?
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean that the divine is hardening Pharaoh's heart? And it almost feels like God wants this chance to demonstrate God's power through all these
Mm-hmm.
wonderful signs and miracles that aren't so wonderful, actually, that are really violent and terrifying.
Right.
Right. And I don't know if I don't know if I have an answer to offer that. I think it's a
Mm-hmm.
profound theological quandary.
Yeah.
Like what are the implications of that possibility actually of God hardening the heart, the divine hardening the heart, so that something can play out or be demonstrated or performed in the stories of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
How do we meet that? Um, I find it interesting. The word harden, um, the word that is used is
I think it's hikbadati. Is that the one that's used here? There are these different verbs that are like, yeah.
yeah, which shares the same root as kavod,
Mm-hmm.
which is heaviness.
Mm-hmm.
Kavod also can mean it's like respect, right, or honor, but the kind of but it's related to a sense of weightiness and heaviness. So what is the purpose also of in moments actually having that kind of weighty, heavy, hardened response
Mm-hmm.
to what's happening in our lives? And so
Mm-hmm.
I think there's two ways to approach it. One is that hardening happens for a reason sometimes, right? If God is in the hardening, if God is actually creating the hardening and the divine is
Mm-hmm.
somehow within that,
Mm-hmm.
ask ourselves, well, does this hardened response actually serve a purpose? Maybe the heart isn't quite ready to open. Maybe it's not actually safe for the heart to be vulnerable and soft in this moment yet,
Yeah.
or in general. So that's one way I think of appreciating that. And then the other way is just this idea that what we resist persists, right? So, which is similar to what I offered around this idea that what is in the way often is the way, like what we think
Mm-hmm.
is in the way of the path actually is the way. So we find that when we try to force something out and harden ourselves against it, it often makes it stronger.
Yeah.
Whether it's a feeling or a thought or something that we just say, no, anything but that. But then when we can actually begin to open to it in a safe way, in a supported way, um, it might really lead the way towards a more liberated
Yeah.
experience and relationship to that
It
situation.
does ultimately. I see Karen Schiff is, there's some really nice comments in the chat. Karen is noting that, there's an idea that, there's that there are this hardening creates an opportunity for Pharaoh and the Egyptians to do tshuva and to repent, to turn. Someone else, I forgot, I didn't see who was asking, but is there, does the Torah say anything about free choice? And the part that comes up most quickly for me is actually in Deuteronomy, where Moses really is emphasizing that and saying, there's blessing and curse. V'charta v'chaim, choose life, choose the good, which implies that there is choice.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess maybe if we think about the hardening as constriction, which is a term that is used a lot in mindfulness practice, how do we noticing constriction, and also the kind of the unavoidability of constriction, like even the heart itself, it has to constrict or else it won't pump the blood, right?
Yeah.
Like we want to be spacious, whatever, but like the heart would not function if it were always open and spacious. It needs to tighten up. So it
Yeah.
seems to me like my takeaway from your teaching basically is that notice constriction, right?
Yeah.
But don't constrict on the constriction.
Mm-hmm.
Bring, be able to meet the constriction. I forgot the language used, but it was really lovely. Maybe you want to just fill in the blank there. How would you finish that sentence? Like, you notice constriction, and the constriction can come from the underlying constriction can come from anxiety, fear, or craving, right? Desire, right? I must have this, and that creates a constriction. If I don't have this, or if this doesn't happen, or all of it leads to anxiety of there not being enough-ness.
Right.
But we're talking. You're leading us into Shabbat. That Shabbat mind or Shabbat practice is the antithesis of that, right? It's about noticing that and letting it go, right? And if we can bring that to the constriction, and Pharaoh was not able to do that, right? So and it is hard to do that.
It is, yeah. And you're touching on a few things. I think one is in noticing the constriction, we definitely don't want to force the constriction to soften, right? It's never about force or making the constriction wrong. And I would say the first thing is just to notice, and to notice if the noticing itself can have a valence of care, that there's actually quality of love in our awareness, even as we're aware of being constricted.
Yeah.
And from that place of the loving awareness of the constriction itself, we might invite the constriction to soften.
Yeah.
Feels like it's possible to do so. And if it's just not happening, we can trust that also, right? We don't need to bring force. But what I notice in my own practice is that very often simply the quality of awareness, of recognizing and acknowledging that there's constriction or pain, and doing that in a living way can actually start to change. It starts to soften on its own. Sometimes, often.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and Ricky Lippitz here is saying, I just read what she wrote. Rebecca, there's something very graceful and different about the way you began your teaching. So intentional. Can you please reiterate and teach us how to begin in this way? More about what's in the way is the way, which is, I think, connected to what you were just saying. Like, what's in the way is the way. If we, just hold it in loving, spacious awareness, the obstacle becomes the path, I guess. Want to say anything more about that?
Yeah. This is like so fundamental, I think, to the practice of mindfulness,
Right.
where we settle into the present moment, and almost immediately something comes up that makes it wrong, right? Like some kind of emotion, feeling, and thought, like, I can't just sit here and be present with my experience. There's all these other things that need to happen, or there's these things that are wrong with my experience. And so it's so fundamental to the practice, really, this turning to actually encounter and meet exactly what is arising and allow it to arise and pass all on its own without needing to do anything about it other than be aware of it with compassion. And so I know, this happens in practice. It also just happens in my life all the time. Like, oh, well, could complete this really important task if only I didn't have to like talk to this person who's having a hard time, or like do my laundry and all my errands, or, all these other things. And then when I actually do those things, I realize, oh no, what I actually needed was to like slow down and tend to my life. Or, oh, actually really giving of my time and my heart to really help someone in need is actually so much more important than whatever I thought I had to do, but I didn't, I was lost. I forgot
Hmm.
that. And
Hmm.
so it's just an invitation to bring inquiry to our lives when there's something going on that we're like, oh, if only that wasn't happening, I'd be fine. What might happen if we were to actually turn towards that and give that our loving attention? We
Right.
might find that that's actually where our attention is needed, even if we can't fully see that ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, to close out, I mean, um, thanks for noting that today is International Holocaust Remembrance Day and bringing that Viktor Frankl quote, and what you just, I think, were describing was, well, first of all, that the reason we're here doing this is, in some ways, a response to that history, right? Because the hardening and the destruction uh, that is really what we're remembering today, right? And we're meeting that, or trying to find a practice that will help us avoid that tendency within ourselves, which is within every human being. And so, by prescribing, as you're doing today, like, curiosity instead of conviction, and creating that space through loving awareness, is really, the antidote that we all need. So thanks as always for like just a beautiful teaching and practice today to bring us into Shabbat. I think everyone here is deeply appreciative. So thanks to you for all that you bring on these Fridays, and also thanks to Jet for holding our space, and to each one of you really for your incredible dedication to this community and showing up for yourself and for each other. It's very, very inspiring and so touching. So we wish everybody a sweet and restorative Shabbat, and hope to see you next week for practice.
Thank you so much, Mark. And thank you, everyone. Lovely to be